Hi, today I'm going to be doing an arc fold on a dress here. Arc as in a big circle. And the way that I like to make my arcs is to take a string, tie it onto my pen, and make a mark on where I want to start the arc, or have the center of the arc be. And then I'll usually draw a couple of them. I'll draw one kind of at the outer edge of the dress out here. So, and of course it doesn't go all the way, but you want to make sure that you hold down tight here with your thumb and then stretch that string all the way out and draw your first arc on. And it should be, or I like to make mine at the outer edge of the dress here. And then you can bring that in just a bit and draw a smaller arc just to help you when you're doing your folding, keep things lined up. And this one then is going to start on the sleeve of the dress here. I think it's just out of the camera view, but I'm on the sleeve. This one you got to be careful as you're moving it, that if you pick up any of these little folds, it's going to move the dress. So you want to make sure your string is free to slide all the way. And once you have that arc drawn on there, then we're going to do an accordion fold. Okay, now we're straightened out here. So the first thing, wherever you have your center at, you want to make sure that you have that marked. Since I had two markers on here, I went ahead and circled the one that I'm going to go by, because this is going to help us straighten things out later on. To start with though, I got two lines here that I'm going to fold with, and you don't have to fold them in sync, but if you go back and forth between the two just to kind of help keep your line straight, and since we're doing a bunch of folds here, I'm going to make the outer one just a little bit taller, and it's going to help then with the arc that we're folding in. So what I'm doing is just going along an accordion folding, and I'm trying to keep my folds about the same height here as I go along. And like I say, you can go ahead and fold this one, come back and fold that one, and just kind of help straighten these out a little bit. We're not going to worry too much about this part of the folds just yet, but when we're done, then we're going to pull on that edge to get those folds lined up a little bit more. And you can be more precise. You can stretch this out, and you can use your little protractor here, and you can draw out a bunch of angles, and then you can go in and actually fold that and back and forth. But that takes a lot of time, and I find this way is quicker, and it's not quite as precise, but it still makes a decent looking pattern here. So we're just going to fold all the way along here. And I like to just keep moving the dress around so the folds that the lines that I'm working at are coming straight towards me. And it just helps lining things up. Like I say, there's various methods you can do, whether you grab a piece and you fold it in here, or you reach out with your fingers and pinch in the fold. So just whatever works for you. I tend to kind of flip back and forth on how I'm accordioning it. And the dress has been soaked in soda ash and then spun out in the washer, so it's just slightly damp. You can do it dry, especially if you're going to do ice dyeing. You might want to fold it dry, or at least let it dry out before you do your ice dyeing. But I find that having the dress slightly damp does help with the folding, because as I get these creases, I don't have to constantly hold on to all of these, and when it's dry it tends to want to separate. So that's the main reason that I like folding mine slightly damp. Okay, we're getting down to the end here. And like I say, I try to keep them nice and even, but I can see a few of these are not quite lined up perfectly, but that's not going to matter too much. Alright. So that fold is done. So now I got just this last one here to line up. Okay, now we're down to the point. This here is where the center was, and I'm going to use that to kind of pull on it. And if you hold your folds in place here, so you want to hold where you folded, and then grab that center spot, you can kind of wiggle some of those folds into place, and then it's just a matter of kind of working them out. Like I say, if you want to be more precise, you can mark out your lines at 15-degree intervals and slowly fold them up, but this here gets the job done not quite as precisely, but efficiently, I would say. So, and then you can just work some of these folds all the way down. And then once I have kind of how I want it lined up, then I'm going to tie that off. So we'll flip this around. And then I like to use kite string. You can use, well actually I guess I'm using embroidery string right now. But kite string, any type of lightweight string is going to work, or you can use rubber bands. But a kite string, or any type of string like this, that works fast. So usually what I'll do is wrap around a couple times right where my outer loop is, and then I kind of go at an angle because I'm going to come back up. So go down and kind of pull that just a little bit tight, and once you get down here, then you can start straightening out more of these folds to try to even those out a little bit. To stay in the camera view here. Okay. So I'm just zigzagging back and forth across here, tying that up, and then I'm going to go the other direction, back up. So I'll zoom in just a little bit, see if you can see my string here. So in doing this, I just, like I say, it makes X's, so I go down one way and I come back up the other direction, and it just crisscrosses and ties that up nice and neat there. And then the rest of the dress, I'm going to fold it out and do the same thing. So I'm going to work at getting these creases here, and I'm just going to carry them on into the rest of the dress here. So I'm just kind of manipulating the dress a little bit and just trying to line up some of these folds here. And then I like to take the end. You can go ahead and tie this off all the way up to the very end, but I like to mix it up a little bit, and I'll do a fold over. And what that does then is I put my colors on, is it's going to give me just a little bit different color down here on this bottom corner here. So it just adds a little extra detail in there for my mind of how I like to do these folds. But there's lots of different ways of doing that, and you can experiment and try and figure out how you like to do it best. So now I'm going to do the same thing, just use the kite string to wrap up and tie this off. Last bit. Now we're down to the end here, and this is about ready for some dye. So, like I say, there's lots of ways of dyeing this. If you like to do ice dyeing and you folded it dry, then you're ready to go. If you folded it slightly damp, I would say let this sit out for a couple days just to finish drying out. But since I'm going to put liquid dye on, this is ready to go, and then I'm just going to put dye on just in rows here. If you want to mark it off, you can do that. And what I would do for marking off where I'm putting my colors at is just use my fingers as a mark, and then you just dye in your lines there. You can dye the same colors on both sides and you get a nice even line. If you dye a different color, say if you were going in your rainbow colors, red, yellow, orange, then on the other side you started with orange and moved to yellow and then red, that's going to alternate and give you kind of a DNA effect, and that's fun too. And that might be what I do with this one here. So we'll come back to dyeing here in just a minute. Okay, it's time to dye the arc fold dress that I tied up a bit ago. And what I've done is I've marked out my dyeing areas on here. I don't know if you can see all the lines, but because they're kind of light colored, but I marked it out. Just use my finger as a marking guide there. You can use one finger, two or three, however wide you want your lines to be. So what I did is lined up the colors that I'm going to use right here, and I'm just going to go down the line, and then I'm going to do a DNA. So when I flip it over, I'm going to alternate the colors, and I'll show you in a minute the best way to work your colors to achieve that effect. So I'm just going to start out by picking the first color here and putting it on. And then since I have 6 colors here, I'm going to leave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 empty spaces, and I'll go down the line here. And this here just helps with putting your colors on, help go on faster instead of having to pick up a bottle, dye one space, put it back down, pick up the next. If you know how many spaces you have and how many colors, you can count it out, and it makes your dyeing go a little bit faster. Although I'm sliding it here, I know that my table is clean, but you want to be careful when you have a little bit of extra dye. You don't want to be sliding it around. I'm just trying to keep this in the camera view line here. But if you slide it on your table and you got little specks and spots of dust, then the bottom side is going to pick all of those up. So be careful moving your dyes around. And of course this edge of the dress, the t-shirt is, or the dress is thicker because the folds were bigger, so you want to make sure you saturate these just a little bit more, get dye down in all of those cracks and crevices. And it'll be something that I'll come back and add more dye to this later. Okay, so let's wipe that up. And then I'm just going to go down the line here once I've put my first color on that I don't have to count, because I know the green is going to go right after the blue stripe, so I can dye the rest of the colors even faster once you've put the first color on. Wiping up things good before I flip it over. And now the little trick I use for DNA is, let's see if I can show you this. So I have my colors lined up over here. And what I'm going to do now, since I started with, let's see if I can see what's going on. I started with the sapphire blue here at the end, and now what I'm going to do is alternate these by one space. So now in all of the spaces that have the sapphire blue, I'm going to put in the light pink, and I'm just going to go down the row that way, and that is going to give me the DNA effect. And that's the easiest way, is if you just alternate your bottles, and then you know which one to pick up and where they're going. So we'll go back to dyeing here. Hold on. And the other thing I did was I counted too quickly, so I don't have two of the pink spaces, so I'm just a little bit off here, but we're going to go for it anyways. So there's the first. Yeah, so this one's going to be a little wonky just because I didn't leave enough spaces. But yeah, if you count those out and you take your time, you can put the dye on pretty efficiently. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, here we go. Now purple for the last color. Okay. And there we have it. So I'm going to let this set up, and then I'll put the picture up on the video once it's done. I'm going to go along and check these and probably add a little bit more dye to each of the sections before I let it set up. But there you have it. Thanks for watching. Please like and share my videos.